Frid och shalom älskade vänner, välkomna till dagens sändning den 7/11/23 och det är en militär uppladdning utan dess like i världen. Men bakom allt det här så är det ju en andlig verklighet också. Och jag ska läsa ifrån psalm 2. Det här handlar alltså om Satan och hans folk, och så handlar det om Gud och hans folk. Det är egentligen en andlig realitet där då som rasar i världen då. Psalm 2. Varför rasar hedna folken? Varför tänker folken fåfängliga tankar? Jordens kungar reser sig upp och furstarna rådslår med varandra mot Herren och hans mode. Låt oss slita sönder deras band och kasta av oss repen. Han som bor i himlen ler. Herren gör narr av dem. Han talar till dem i vrede, i glödande harm förskräcker han dem. Det är jag som har insatt min kung på Sion, mitt heliga berg. Det är sann sionism det. Jesus Kristus som Herre, evangeliets kung. Jag vill kungöra Herrens beslut. Han sa till mig, säger Herren Jesus Kristus, du är min son, jag har idag fött dig. Begär om mig så ska jag ge dig hedna folken till arvedel och hela jorden till din egendom. Du ska krossa dem med järnspira, slå sönder dem som lerkrukor. Handla nu vist ni kungar, låt varna er ni domare på jorden. Tjäna Herren med fruktan och gläd er med bävan. Och Jesus sa ju att Fadern och han är ett. Och här tycks det vara både Fadern och Sonen som talar då. Och anden inspirerar ju allsammans och är ett. Iran hotar nu USA och USA hotar Iran. Vi kommer att se här i 2 videoklipp här som följer. Där vi visar er kartorna här från som vanligt då över striden. Om man har nått fram till Gaza City nu. Nu blir det smålir och kanske väldigt blodigt där inne. Ni vet det blir gerillakrig i gränderna. Men jag vill läsa upp en text som Amir Sarfati la in på Telegram nyss. Så vi förstår vart vi kan vara på väg. Hur allvarligt denna konflikt kan urarta. Amir skriver: en betydande militär upptrappning sker nu runt om i Mellanöstern när USA sätter in en imponerande uppsättning strategiska tillgångar inklusive B-1B Lancer bombplan. Ett av dessa bombplan som nyligen sågs flyga över Saudiarabien är utrustad med precisionssystem. Ett avancerat målsystem som gör exakta attacker från långa avstånd. Denna utveckling innebär förberedelser för en eventuell konflikt där Iran verkar stå i fokus för tillfället. I en betydande styrkeuppvisning stationerades 2 B-1B Lancer bombplan i Turkiet nära Iran. Dessa bombplan är inte bara kapabla att bära kärnstridsspetsar utan är i stånd att använda 50 B61, en taktisk atombomb som har alltså en precisionsmål alltså, eller ja, man kan skjuta på mindre avstånd och mindre mål då, som till exempel Irans kärnvapenanläggningar då. Den är alltså i Turkiet i basen och är under NATOs kärnvapenprogram. Något som bidrar till den här strategiska förvirringen är en Ohio-klassens ubåt, alltså en sån här jättestor atomdriven ubåt som är en del av USAs kärnvapentriad. Den har nu flyttats in i USAs centralkommandos ansvarsområde. Denna ubåt kan vara USS Florida. Den bär Tomahawk kryssningsmissiler med kärnstridsspetsar. har blivit en viktig tillgång för aggressiv eller vedergällningsstrategi när det gäller kärnvapen. Utplaceringen av F-15 East Regal Eagles i Jordanien bidrar också till denna uppbyggnad. Dessa flygplan är speciellt anpassade för djupanfallsuppdrag. Det är de enda flygplanen som är godkända att bära B-61-12. Det är den senaste generationen av atombomberna som kännetecknas av avancerade styrsystem för maximal precision. I den breda militära sammanhanget ingår tillhandahållandet av en imponerande truppstyrka här i regionen. Hangarfartygsgrupperna Eisenhower och Gerald Ford, en hel marinkårsenhet, 2 franska hangarfartyg och en del brittiska hangarfartyg som HMS Queen Elizabeth. Politiska aktioner äger rum samtidigt som den militära upptrappningen. USAs representanthus godkände nyligen en resolution med en överväldigande majoritet som kräver att Iran hindras från att bli en kärnvapenmakt. Dessutom överväger ledande senatorer en 2-partiresolution som skulle kunna bana väg för en officiell krigsförklaring mot Iran. Om krafter kopplade till Iran, såsom Hezbollah, skadar amerikanska eller israeliska intressen. Och ni som har följt nyheterna vet ju att de har anfallit amerikanska intressen flera gånger här. Så det här kan ju bli en verklighet ganska snabbt faktiskt. En koncentration av militär vakenhet och politisk vilja tyder på en aldrig tidigare skådad beredskapsnivå för en konflikt som kan innefatta kärnvapen. Närvaron av B-1B Lancer-bombplanen med dess kärnvapenkapacitet och avancerade målsökningssystem är särskilt talade för USAs förberedelser för ett högprecisionsprogram med hög risk. I takt med den stora mängden utrustning, ammunition och människor som fortsätter att förflyttas till regionen blir nu risken för en aggressiv kärnvapenattack mot Iran mer sannolik. Särskilt mot bakgrund av den ökande oron för säkerheten och de senaste attackerna mot de amerikanska baserna i Irak och i Syrien. Sammanfattningsvis är situationen alltså allvarlig med militära, politiska och strategiska indikationer som pekar på en nära förestående konfrontation i Mellanöstern där USA och dess allierade verkar redo för en möjlig aggressiv attack för att avskräcka Irans kärnvapenambitioner. Ja, kära Gud, hoppas jag säga här. Vi lever alltså i en tid där hela världen kan sättas i brand. Och vi får som kristna här verkligen be om ett uppvaknande då. För att vinna människor för Gud som är vår uppgift då. Men vi ber också för Israel och Jerusalem. Och vi ber för att människor ska vakna upp här nu. I församlingarna då först och främst då. Halleluja.
This weekend.
Coward!
Let's go with genocide!
You condemn Hamas.
Do you condemn 75 years of occupation? That's the answer.
I am not going to condemn Hamas.
This is not Israel. This is Palestine. This is our ancestral homeland.
We're done hiding. This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be upon, of Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. So I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it in every single district. It should tremble. Brooklyn should hear it. The Bronx should hear it. Queens should hear it. ilaha illallah! Muhammadan Rasulullah! There is no God worthy of worship except Allah.
Should Israel exist?
There's no Israel. Israel is a fascist state.
So you're saying get rid of Israel altogether?
Get rid of it.
Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters raged in Washington, D.C. before descending on the White House, smearing the gates with red paint. They estimated at one point the crowd in Washington was 100,000 strong.
So as I mentioned, that was this weekend, and here's a couple more articles regarding what took place at the White House. Pro-Palestinian protesters climbed up the White House fence on Saturday and attacked Secret Service agents trying to stop them. Thousands marched on the streets of Washington, D.C. and eventually gathered at the residence of the U.S. president. It's unclear if Joe Biden was in the building. Reports said that the protesters smashed windows at a McDonald's outlet next to the White House. And fake bloodstains left on the White House. A massive anti-war protest took place on Saturday in Washington, D.C. with thousands storming the gates of the White House and leaving damage in their wake. On Monday morning, some remnants of that protest remain, including bloody handprints on the gates. ABC White House correspondent Mary Bruce posted a photo of the gates post-protest, still bearing the marks of the pro-Palestinian demonstration that took place at the gates, where the fences were shaken and the crowd chanted, "F Joe Biden." Now, we had heard that there was tens of thousands, if not over 100,000, at Washington, D.C. in protest, and they had come from all over the U.S., as we've also heard from the FBI that they believe that Hamas and those that might commit attacks on U.S. soil are already here, and we saw from that protest people from all over the nation gathering at Washington, D.C., at the White House, focused on voicing their message to the president. Now, in addition to that, we've also heard from Iran, as I shared with you, that gave a chilling threat to the United States. Take a look at this article. It just came out in the past 24 hours. Iran's chilling threat to America over Israel. Islamic regime says that the U.S. will be hit hard if no Gaza ceasefire is implemented, and we've heard from Israel there will not be a ceasefire anytime soon, that they will push through, they will eradicate Hamas. This war will not stop. So it is looking more and more like the tensions that are rising between the U.S. and Iran will lead to war, and they're saying will lead to World War III. Iran has issued a chilling threat to the United States, telling them that it will be hit hard if no ceasefire is implemented in Gaza, amid new fears that Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza could escalate. Mohammad Reza Ashtiani, Iran's Minister of Defense, emphasized the urgency, stating, "Our advice to the Americas is to immediately halt the war in Gaza and implement a ceasefire, otherwise they will be hit hard." But Mr. Blinken rejected a ceasefire, insisting that it would only give Iranian-backed Hamas a chance to regroup following its horrific attack on Israel on October 7th, killing 1,400 civilians and taking more than 240 hostages. Instead, Mr. Blinken pressed for pauses in the fighting to allow civilians to evacuate from the battleground of Gaza City and the northern part of the enclave, which is being pounded with heavy Israeli artillery barrages as the war passes its 30th day. The uncompromising tone was echoed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who pledged at an Air Force base, "There will be no ceasefire without the return of our hostages. We say this both to our enemies and our friends. We will continue until we beat them." Another senior Iranian government figure ramped up the tensions with the West still further. The deputy leader of the power of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said, "If Israel's crimes continue, we should strike America's interest without specifying how. Iran considers the U.S. Israel's foremost ally to be militarily involved in the conflict. The U.S. has continually defended Israel's right to defend itself and has offered military support, in addition to moving its warships and 2,000 Marines into the region. Iranian regime officials have consistently warned Israel of potential escalation should the attacks on Gaza not cease, with the death toll in the Strip rising to over 9,700, Hamas-led officials say. So tensions are rising, and many believe this is going to be leading to World War III, and we've already received warnings from the FBI that attacks on U.S. soil could be coming, and we've received word on cities that are on the watch list. Now, if you missed that, check it out right here next as I cover the details of the list. They're saying that they believe that there are sleeper cells in these cities waiting to attack with a coordinated effort all at once. And in addition to that, we've heard that if we do go to war, our military reserves right now are 1/10 of what they were the last time a draft was needed. And they're saying even though Congress and the military is saying it's not needed, the numbers are telling a different story. And to get those, like I said, check out these videos right here next. But you guys, I'll be sure to keep you up to date as more information rolls out. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.
War has officially begun. Israeli forces started a major operation on the northwest and southwest flanks. However, the fighters of Hamas terrorist organization started a great resistance on the city borders. A strong resistance was expected in the cities, so the secret plan of the Israeli army was activated. The stronghold of Hamas fell with a single operation. Gunfire has been heard in Gaza for about 10 hours, and the fate of the region will be decided today. If the Israeli forces open the resistance, a big corridor will be formed in Gaza. According to breaking reports, Hamas's first line of defense has been breached. Therefore, the Hezbollah terrorist organization has launched an attack from the north of Israel. Mechanized brigades in the north are advancing to the south of Lebanon. This is the most critical day of the last days. Let's go to our video without wasting time. Firstly, it was observed that the Israeli forces were heavily deployed in the northwest and southwest points. In this process, mobility started with the first light of the morning. It was thought that the militants affiliated to the Hamas organization were preparing for resistance with the tunnels and shipments in the region. With the first light of the day, Israeli unmanned aerial vehicles started to fly intensively and collect images in the northwestern part of Gaza. The unmanned aerial vehicles flew for about 3 hours, and around 8 a.m., Israeli jets took off one after the other. 8 Israeli warplanes carried out more than 20 airstrikes on Hamas targets in the northwestern part of Gaza. The majority of the attacks were carried out in the Al-Nasser area of Gaza. During this process, the starting point of the operation was partially determined. While the airstrikes covered a large area in the northwest of Gaza, it was observed that Israeli tanks suddenly mobilized. As the Israeli tanks moved towards Al-Nasser, the first fire was opened by the Hamas terrorist organization. Hamas launched the first attack about 1 kilometer north of the first point of movement of the tanks. The aim of this attack was to reduce the intensity of the first strong ground attack on Gaza. With the first attack of the terrorist groups, major clashes erupted on Salah Khalaf Street. Hamas members wanted to cross the street in order to buy time to enter the towns and move the fighting into the cities. However, with the first movement of Hamas, the Israeli soldiers deployed inside the cities started a very violent counterattack. It was observed that Hamas attacked in 3 groups. In the first advance, 2 groups stood behind the street, while 1 group advanced and fell into a large ambush. It was observed that all terror members in the advancing group were eliminated under crossfire. During the clash, it was seen that the Israeli army lost 1 armored vehicle, while there was no loss of life. With the failure of the first attack of Hamas, the great operation against Hamas started suddenly and powerfully. Before moving on to our main topic, last-minute reports that will shake the agenda have reached us. Israeli forces have discovered a Hamas stronghold where many members of the terrorist organization are hiding in the area they control. Israeli forces have discovered a large gathering area belonging to the Hamas organization and a large number of Hamas members' houses on the point you see on the map. The organization used this spot as a stronghold, and the fighting in the north was directed from this area. Members of the Hamas terrorist organization, who were captured yesterday, confessed during interrogation and revealed these gathering areas. Tanks of the Israeli army mobilized very quickly. With the advance of 3 large units of special forces and 9 tanks, the infantry was deployed behind the tanks. With the covert start of the operation, the tanks entered the range of the Hamas fortress and successive shots began. As a result of the attacks, the area called the fortress was destroyed. In this process, special forces units mobilized and started an investigation in the region. As the troops reached the region, gunshots were heard one after the other. According to the statements made, while 14 Hamas members were eliminated as a result of the first attack, it was determined that Israeli troops were fired from the surrounding area. The 7 Hamas members who survived the first attack were neutralized with the second attack. As a result of the investigations in the area, new documents and a large number of military equipment were found, on the northwest of Gaza. The first attack took place at the junction of Salah Khalaf and Al-Nasser streets. Members of the terrorist organization deployed in houses located at the intersection of the 2 streets and began firing at Israeli forces from these houses. After the first attack, Israeli tanks hit 1 terrorist house in the area, causing heavy damage. However, it was determined that the terrorists attacked with anti-tank missiles and damaged 1 Merkava tank. The Israeli tank withdrew, and very fierce clashes started after this process. Since the terrorist organizations hid in many separate houses in the vicinity, the clashes came to a standstill. With very fierce clashes for about 2 hours, air support was requested to the region. Unmanned aerial vehicles of the Israeli army destroyed the building on the street where 2 terrorist members were stationed. In this process, 1 tunnel used by militants was discovered. With the arrival of new soldiers and reinforcements from the area under Israeli control, the outer region was officially entered. However, it should be noted that every point of the region is full of traps and attacks are carried out from every point. Therefore, it would be a big mistake for the Israeli army to advance quickly. After this process, small advances are very valuable. With the entry of forces into the area, half of the outer area was taken under control. During the capture of the area, many engineers and specialized soldiers provided security in the surrounding area and destroyed the traps. Once the safe zone was established, the drones reappeared on the scene. The drones destroyed 3 more points in the southeastern part of Ada district. About half an hour after the first attacks, the special forces started to advance and the clashes intensified again. By nightfall, it was announced that the Ada area was completely under control. Israeli forces want to create a secure buffer zone in the neighborhood, because despite the clearance of the region from the terrorist organization, attacks continued continuously throughout the day. On the other hand, I can say that the Israeli army has doubled the speed of its deployments. It was also observed that thousands of soldiers were sent from the Zikim area to the Gaza line. A much larger operation will begin in a very short time, and these operations will continue until Gaza is completely cleared. If the Israeli forces succeed in creating a corridor, Hamas will be dealt a major blow. The connection with the coastal Sharia will be cut, and I think that the operations will suddenly turn completely westwards. In addition, the Israeli forces will open at least 4 main fronts from the areas under their control. Therefore, the Hamas terrorist organization will be prevented from focusing on one point. As you know, during this process, airstrikes and artillery strikes will be carried out to break Hamas's resistance to a large extent. These airstrikes allow ground operations to be carried out more easily, but the situation in the region remains very critical and uncertain. At the moment, the Israeli army has made great progress, greatly demotivating the members of the terrorist organization. However, it is worth noting that there are hundreds of houses in the region where there are more traps and Hamas members than you can imagine. Clearing all of these points one by one requires a long time, a good war economy, and a very strong psychology. For this reason, as I have stated in every video, cautious and correct operations should be continued without breaking discipline, because the target of the attack is a terrorist organization, not a regular army. It is almost impossible to predict how terrorist organizations will react. The tension continues to increase day by day. We have come to the end of another video.